Hi friends, I'm making this video for Stacy in our group about feeling unshakable during a hospital birth. So if you're wanting to have a hospital birth or specifically an unmedicated hospital birth, this video is for you. There are several different parts to this that I can think of that would be the most helpful to explain. The first step that I want to talk about is preparing emotionally. If you want to feel unshakable in the presence of labor, and if you want to feel unshakable in the presence of other staff or other people who will be at your birth who may, suggest something that doesn't align with your preferences, for example, this is something that happens often in hospital births. In my opinion, the most important thing that will support you in feeling that feeling of being unshakable, feeling confident and powerful, is to prepare yourself emotionally. So I go over a whole framework for emotional preparation in my birth class, but I'm going to cover one of my favorite tools right now, and that is to feel your fear. This isn't about giving birth in a certain way or following through with a certain plan. This is about being able to choose from love, choose from your birth intention rather than fear. And this is important because when we make choices from love rather than fear, when we choose from our wholeness, it's more likely that that choice is really going to align with what we want to experience for our birth. It will support the best path for you and your baby. So right now, I want you to feel into your experience of giving birth in the hospital and allow the things that are coming up for you that you may have fear around to totally come up into your awareness. And I invite you to feel them. So rather than judging your fear or analyzing your fear or focusing all of your attention on it, and rather than resisting it and pushing it to the side and pretending it's not there and just going about your life, instead, I just want you to truly feel it and accept it for what it is: fear. We all have fear because we are all humans, and having fear is part of the human experience. And so I invite you just to choose to feel your fear and to love yourself. I invite you just to feel it when it comes up and allow yourself to fully experience the feeling of that fear and just say, I'm afraid. And as soon as you say, I'm afraid, and you accept that you have fear, it's like the power of the fear is taken back. You know what I mean? Like it doesn't have this power over you anymore because it's not something that you're in inner conflict with, which kind of can sometimes make it feel like bigger and bigger and bigger. Instead, you're fully accepting what is, you're present in the moment with yourself, and you're loving yourself. And if you can use this tool continuously throughout your pregnancy process, that can help support you in having a stronger pathway to accepting your fear and embracing any fear that arises along the path. And that can also support you in being able to do that even better during the labor and birth process if any fear were to come up. Thinking about the word unshakable, what does that mean? When I think of unshakable, I think of someone who is like so grounded into the earth like a tree. And I don't believe that unshakable means that you're rigid on one path. I believe that unshakable means that you are grounded in the belief that you can do it, that your body was made to do it, and you're choosing to love yourself throughout the process and make choices from love rather than fear. So I don't want to say that overcoming fear is what we need to do, because fear is not some sort of separate thing that we need to hurdle ourselves over, that we need to jump over or like tackle or win. It's a part of the human experience, and instead, when we embrace it, we can transmute it and soften into it, just as we embrace and soften into contractions. It's allowing the uncomfortable to be present within us and to move through us, and to remind us that every passing moment is temporary. Everything that we experience is temporary. So this is about embracing and loving yourself because you deserve it. And so the next step is to empower yourself with knowledge. It is a fact, unfortunately, that most hospitals in the US do not practice in alignment with current evidence, and that's just simply because it takes many years for current research to make their way into policy. But it is true that in the hospital, you probably won't be receiving the best evidence-based care if you follow along every single policy. If you learn what the research has to say on all of your options, you can feel informed to be able to make informed choices. This is vital to the experience of feeling empowered and unshakable because let's say, for example, your water breaks before you go into labor, and you're told that it's policy that you have to come in when your water is broken and start Pitocin to go into labor. And so maybe you do that, but you didn't realize that Pitocin makes contractions unnaturally painful because Pitocin molecules don't cross the blood-brain barrier, which means that your body is not going to release the endorphins that it would in a normal contraction. When you have natural contractions, your body does not create a contraction that you cannot handle because it was created by your body, and your body releases the perfect amount of endorphins to support you in being able to work with that contraction and cope with it with every single one. With Pitocin, the contractions are artificially stimulated. That can be a little more intense for baby, and it can also be more intense for you. But since you weren't informed on Pitocin, now you're surprised that this is happening and you don't realize that it's because of the Pitocin. So then you get an epidural. And this is what, happens for a lot of people. So simply by having the knowledge, you can say, well, thank you for the recommendation, but by simply having the knowledge, instead, you can be the writer of your story. And instead of giving power away and let other people make choices for you, you can be fully informed in every single choice. Really, every time that an option comes up to be presented to you, you should receive the current research and the evidence on what that option is and what the recommendation is. You should receive an option to decline, an option to move forward, and other options in addition to that. That is often not the way that care providers communicate in the healthcare system right now. And so it is our job to learn these things ourselves and to be willing to have conversations with our providers where we are exercising our self-agency, we're asking for options, and we're discussing alternatives instead of just saying, okay, I'll do whatever you want me to do. So if your water breaks before you go into labor, you can say, oh, I learned about this in Victoria's birth class. The research shows that when your water breaks before labor, for most people, you have 48 to 72 hours without increasing the risk of infection to baby. So you can say, thank you, but I'll wait instead of getting Pitocin if that's something you'd rather do. And maybe you wait for a day and contractions kick in naturally. And so if you're someone who really wanted to go into labor spontaneously, now you are able to give yourself that experience because you had the research and you felt confident in your knowledge. So you were able to make a confident, informed choice. And so the third step is to create the team and the environment that best support your intention, which is to feel unshakable. I invite you to acknowledge that there is a difference between being unshakable, as in I got this and I can advocate and I can stand up for what I want, and being unshakable within yourself as you're simultaneously vulnerable. Because birth is inherently a vulnerable experience. It is not reasonable or fair for anyone who is laboring to also have to stand up and advocate for what it is that they want. And this is why having conversations with your care provider beforehand, writing up a really clear birth plan, researching your care provider's intervention rates and the hospital intervention rates, all that stuff is really important so that you have clear agreements with your provider and you have clear knowledge and understanding around the way that hospital works. You have knowledge on the risks and benefits of all of your options. And then from there is often less advocacy that is needed, but it is still important to have tools and knowledge for advocacy and to have other people who can support you in advocating. So I invite you to find this place where you can blossom open to the vulnerability and the nakedness that birth invites us to step into, and at the same time to be unwavering and unshakable within yourself, believing in yourself and your own inner strength. And that is going to come from loving yourself. That is going to come from working through your fear. That is going to come from knowing that you took the time and invested the energy beforehand in your education, in creating the space and the dynamics with care providers, with doulas, partner, anyone who's going to be at your birth, to make sure that everyone you chose to be in your birth aligned with your intention, who you walk away from feeling happy and well supported and safe. All of that is really going to support you in being able to show up for yourself in that way. Birth, especially unmedicated births, are initiations into a new phase of life. And I believe that birth is not always painful, but when we do experience pain, the intensity of the sensations we experience are there for a reason. They are there to guide us and empower us and take us to the depths of our being so we can find our inner strength and step out on the other side, reborn as the mother that is going to raise this next generation that is going to help heal and regenerate our planet. The children who are coming in this world need their mothers to love themselves. They need their mothers to know that they do not need anything outside of themselves to be enough. They need their mothers to fully believe in themselves, that they can know that they are enough, that they can believe in themselves too. And I'm not saying that a birth experience that you don't want is going to negatively impact your path in that way. But what I'm saying is birth can serve as an opportunity to support you in really stepping into that role, to go through that intensity and that sensation. It's like this somatic experience of showing you again and again and again how strong you are. It's really magical, and it can be really hard too. But really what we truly want deep down is for someone to stand in the truth and the belief that we can do it and that our body was made to do this, and to reflect that to us. So when we are surrounding ourselves in the hospital space with people who believe that we can do it, so if you have an experience of intensity where you have to really reach down deep inside yourself to find that strength to be able to cope and work through it, and if you feel like you can't do it, having someone who is just a mirror reflecting to you that you are doing it can really be everything. So your partner really needs to learn and invest everything that you're learning and investing. As if you want to have an unmedicated hospital birth, at the hospital, it is just a reality that there are more choices to be made, more things to say no to or yes to, more information to learn when it comes to options and interventions. And so if your partner has fear and they are not working on their fear and they're not showing up for the learning process, when you're going through that initiation and you are feeling like you need help, you may not even be able to articulate what it is that you're really wanting help with, but your partner may be so uncomfortable watching you go through an uncomfortable experience that they may push you to get the epidural, or they may not really stand for what it is that you are actually wanting in the moment. And they also may not be able to operate from their integrity or their wholeness because they're so overcome with fear, or they simply don't have the knowledge. And so they may want you to just make the choice that aligns with the policy, even though maybe that choice is not aligned with evidence, nor is it the best choice in alignment with you. And also, having a doula or other support people can really help. We have so much research on doulas, and what we found is that having a skilled birth companion significantly decreases your risk of so many interventions, and having a friend or a family member is also supportive, but having someone who has done this before many, many times, who is trained in supporting birth and has those skills and those tools, is the most supportive in helping people achieve unmedicated births, lower cesarean rates, and lower rates of other interventions. And another person who will be at your birth, and this is the last thing I'm going to talk about, is your care provider. Your care provider makes such a huge difference in your birth experience. They have such a big impact. So it's really important that you have many conversations with your provider prenatally about the policies, about the way things happen, about what your preferences are, and about how they handle certain interventions or different situations. We have a lot of research that shows that your chosen care provider significantly impacts your risk for tearing. So simply choosing one care provider or another can make the difference between you tearing or not. And that's because some providers practice in alignment with evidence and some providers don't. There are a lot of old school birth rituals and birth routines that some providers are still stuck in, and other providers are simply limited because of the policies that they have to operate under. Write a very clear birth plan and go over it step by step with your provider. And if at any point, even at the tail end of your pregnancy, you feel disrespected or unheard or unsafe with your provider, it is never too late to find a new provider. This is your body and your birth, and you've got this.